Chapter 10. Zhou Group ultimately went bankrupt. Such a huge business warship, an old money aristocrat family towering for nearly 100 years, in just 2 months vanished in a puff of smoke. And Zhongda Group unavoidably received implication. The stock fell by a large amount. The Commercial Crime Investigation Division also started an investigation into it, and the competitors comprehensively sniped and suppressed. All of this was enough to make Zhou and Jing feel hard-pressed. Zhou Yunsheng was staring at the AI on his wrist. The progress bar had risen to 99%. Because the original owner's fate changed, this world was already almost out of the Lord God's control, running an unpredictable road. There was still a 1% probability that the world might break free and return to normal, but Zhou Yunsheng wasn't worried about this. He could choose how long he stayed in this world, so there was enough time to guarantee success. Half a month ago, CBS interview with Noah Universal's chairman was broadcasted on C Country's international news channel, and the true identity of the legendary figure was known to everyone. The young family that originally suffered heavy losses and almost went bankrupt quickly joined the ranks of the first-class aristocrat families in Sea Country by using the Thais east wind. Today was the head of the Guo family, Guo Likun's wife, Lady Guo Lin Damping's 60th birthday. As Guo family's in-laws, young family's head, Yang Shenhai, and his wife were also invited to attend. Of course, Guo family's main goal was to meet Zhou Yunsheng through the Yang family, who let Yang Shenhai be Zhou Yunsheng's uncle and made the relationship between the two be so close. If fate developed the way it originally did after Zhou father's death, Zhou Wenjing and Zhou Wen'ang would join hands to deal with the Yang family, and it quickly fell apart. As a result, the original Zhou Yunsheng couldn't get his uncle's protection, and his days were very miserable. But now Yang family was completely incomparably from the timeline. After Yang family suffered from the disinvestment crisis, Yang Shenhai's wife, Guo Shufang, once went back home to cry for help, but was rejected by Guo Likun. Guo Likun was married to Guo Lin Danping, who successfully gave birth to 2 daughters, but because he was anxious for a son, he kept a mistress, who gave birth to a pair of opposite-sex twins that he then brought into the family. Guo Lin Danping was angry enough to die of a heart attack. The Guo family's grandparents, who were longing for a grandson, were ecstatic, without regard for Guo Lin Danping and her 2 daughters' feelings. They made the head of the family add the twins into the genealogical records. Guo Likun even personally educated the male twin, and now at the age of 20, the young man had already joined the board of directors, treated just like the next head of the Guo family. You could imagine how awkward Guo Shufang and her mother and sister's position in Guo family was. She went home to request help. The Guo family grandparents were soft-hearted, but Guo Likun was persuaded by his mistress and her 2 children to add a condition to Yang family, sell the contract for undersea tunnel project to them for the lowest price. This was no different than looting a burning house and throwing stones at someone who fell down a well. Guo Shufang wailed in anger, but she had no way out. In the end, her mother, Guo Lin Damping, and her younger sister sold their jewelry to secretly slip her a few millions. Because of this, after her nephew fixed the shortage of funds, Guo Shufang went to the mall to buy up all the jewelry. This was only to compensate her mother and younger sister. In short, if there was no Lady Guo Lin Danping, Yang family and Guo family would have already become enemies. Guo Lin Danping, although already 60, had very good maintenance. Her figure was plentiful, her face was ruddy, she had a kind of serene older beauty. Guo Li-kun stood at her side, meeting the guests with a big smile. Yang family's car has arrived. Seeing the slowly approaching luxury car, Li Kum's eyes lit up. Leading along the pair of boy-girl twins, he rushed towards the door to welcome them. Guo Lin Danping leaned on her littlest daughter's arm for support, unhurriedly following behind, her mouth rising in a slight, mocking curve. Yang Xinhai and his wife slowly walked over, accompanying a young man. The young man looked handsome, had a gentle temperament, and peach blossom eyes. When he looked at the people, the merciless would become passionate, deeply imprinting on hearts. When he looked at people, merciless would become passionate, deeply imprinting on hearts. This is our big nephew, really handsome. Wu Li-kun warmly exchanged greetings. He also tried to introduce the young twins to the young man. Zhou Yunsheng smiled faintly and nodded, bypassing the three to hold Gu Lin Danping's hand, saying, I wish grandmother a happy birthday. Who was favored and who was unfavored was obvious at a glance. Why on earth are you standing here? Quick, go inside. Gu Shufang intimately held her nephew's hand and her mother's hand and went in. Guo Li Kun was very embarrassed, but he refused to let the opportunity slip by, quickly following behind with the twins. The arrival of these guests attracted all the other guests' raised eyebrows. They inwardly cited Guo family's lucky in-law connection. Yunsheng, let me introduce you to. This is your cousin Guo Jinan. He's currently learning from me, but if you have free time, you're welcome to teach him. This is your cousin Guo Baoji. She's still attending B University, learning vocal music. Guo Li-kun was persistent in pushing the pair of twins to the young man's side. Guo Baoji smiled a bright and good-mannered smile, but Guo Jinan twisted his eyebrows, his eyes containing disgusted hostility. Shou Yunsheng glanced at him, smiled, and said, I hear you're good friends with Wen-ang? Nowadays, who didn't know the resentment between the three Zhou family brothers? Originally, outsiders thought that Zhou family's two illegitimate children had forced the eldest son into a dead end. Who would have guessed that the eldest son was actually an untouchable T-Rex? He just had to lift his foot and step, and the Zhou clan that the two illegitimate children had viciously fought over and worked so hard to win had been annihilated. So even if Zhou Yunsheng looked handsome and gentle, others couldn't ignore this way of killing decisively. Thinking of this, Guo Zinan's face slightly paled. Guo Li-kun, embarrassed, interfered. He's still small, his vision has not opened up, so it's inevitable that he'll make friends carelessly. There's this saying, a young person's mistake can always be forgiven. Zhou Yunsheng's smile turned even more gentle, commenting, young people do have the right to make mistakes, but not every one of these mistakes are worth of forgiveness. Mr. Gu, your words are not good. Always be strict with the younger generation, and don't indulge their mistakes. Otherwise, they'll end up like my younger brother Wen-ang. He'll be 50 years old after he gets out of prison. Even if he wants a do-over, he's already lost his chance. Isn't that true? On the surface, the Zhou group collapsed because of a series of economic crimes, but underneath the surface, who didn't know that the Zhou family's eldest son was behind it? The man only needed to move his hand to squeeze a colossus like the Zhou clan to death. Guo family's the third-rate family wasn't even worth enough to play around with. Guo Zinan couldn't stop trembling. Guo Li-kun nodded in embarrassment while pulling out his handkerchief to wipe the cold sweat on his forehead. Guo Lin Danping and her daughters were calmly drinking and chatting as if they'd hear nothing, but in reality their hearts were very pleased. Just then there was a sound of repeated exclamation of alarm at the door. The Guo family members turned around to look, seeing a tall man slowly walk in. He wore an exquisitely tailored pure black suit. His chest pocket was decorated with a silver-gray handkerchief, and his hair was combed back, exposing a carved and chiseled handsome face. His long and narrow eyes concealed sharpness. very daunting. Today's Du family had already become the world's number one arms dealer. After the family was integrated, Du Shulang was in control of all the power. Less and less people capable of threatening him existed, so these years he gradually appeared in the public eye more often. In Sea Country, most of the influential people were very familiar with his deeds, although he didn't understand why this otherworldly person showed up uninvited. Guoli-kun still immediately put down his wine glass to greet him, enjoying the envious looks on his way over. But Du Shulang directly walked past him, opening up his arms towards the gentle smiling young man. "Baby, why didn't you wait for me?" "I was accompanying my aunt to buy a birthday gift." Zhou Yunsheng gave him a hug, then handed him his glass, reaching to take another. "Grandmother, happy birthday." Du Sulang let go of his lover and gently embraced Lady Gulin Danping. His intimate address made the receiving end somewhat mystified. "Mr. Du, you and Yunsheng are... He's my boyfriend." Zhou Yunsheng carefully dropped the bomb, making Du Shulang laugh joyfully. He simply loved his companion's fearless and straightforward nature. If even the courage to recognize a lover was lacking, why continue walking shoulder to shoulder? In the end, Gulin Danping wasn't a mediocre person. After seeing her daughter's non-reaction, showing that she was already informed, she quickly restored her calm. But standing beside them, Guli-kun and his twins paled. Then they asked to be excused. The Noah group already had enough weight. If they added in Du Conglomerate, this couple would simply be the world's strongest combination. Anyone who provoked them had a death wish. Thinking of his past behavior of hitting young family while it was down, Guli-kun regretted until his intestines were green. Catching sight of his mistress, hesitating in her original position, not daring to approach, he couldn't wait to slap her to death. Spectators connected the news of Du Conglomerate's upcoming cooperation with Noah Universal in the development of new weapons to what they were seeing, an exposed successive expression of realization. And as it turns out, Guo family had merely touched the edge of young family's light, nothing more. Long after Zhou Enjing arrived with his arms around a pure-looking girl, the current Zhongda group, after a series of setbacks, wasn't as large as before, and he'd lost his previous public attention. Outsiders described him with the bland and average word, promising junior. With someone like Zhou Yunsheng pressing him down from above, did his excellence matter? Seeing the two men intimately attached and drinking wine, Zhou Wenjing's eyes darkened. The girl at his side also exposed eyes of hatred. "You seem to be your second uncle's daughter?" Zhou Yunsheng gently swirled the wine in the cup. The girl was one of Wenjing's numerous harem members. Her family background was rather complicated. Her father was Du Shulang's second uncle, and he was originally the most likely to inherit Du Conglomerate, but he was suppressed by Du Shulang after repeated confrontation between uncle and nephew. Deep hatred had long been sown, and each was anxious to quickly eliminate the other. Zhu Wenjing openly associating with this woman was equivalent to standing with Du Sulang's enemy. Du Sulang stared at them, but his nephew just nodded slightly, his attitude very cold. Du Sulang suddenly chuckled. "It's my fault. I was too easygoing with him before." If it was the original development of fate, Du Sulang would easily forgive his nephew. Then, in a moment of inattentiveness, he be stabbed by the girl, causing serious injury. Zhou Wenjing killed the girl's father in revenge for his uncle. Not only did the nephew and uncle not drift apart, the relationship between them grew closer. Today's Du Sulang had a lover. His desire for familial love unconsciously faded away. Moreover, Zhou Wenjing and him had no blood relationship. What kind of close relative could he be regarded as? He defrauded Zhou Wenjing before, and he'd also helped him stabilize his situation. If not for Du Conglomerate's protection, Zhongda Group would have been carved up until almost nothing was left. Du Sulang was aware that he had invested more than enough in his nephew. He wasn't a holy father, conceding endless times, capacity for forgiveness lacking no bottom line. Since his nephew showed clear intention to part ways, he wouldn't urge him to stay. Thinking like this, Du Shulang raised his glass to his nephew, then drained it. Zhou Yunsheng was surprised to find that the progress bar on his AI had suddenly risen to 100%. He muttered to himself a bit, then found a reason. Du Shulang was Zhou Wenjing's biggest golden finger. Even if all his women were added up, their influence couldn't compare to Du Sulang. Because Du Sulang supported him, he could escape unscathed from all kinds of disasters. Now that Du Sulang had given up being his shield, if he someday met another crisis, it wouldn't be so easy to resolve. Of course, it was also now 100% impossible for him to achieve his fated achievements. Changing the protagonist's fate was a shortcut to changing the world's trajectory. But unless the protagonist was actively harming him, Zhou Yunsheng wouldn't take the initiative to provoke them. Zhou Wenjing was cheated because he jumped into the trap by his own will. In addition to changing the protagonist's fate, Zhou Yunsheng could also change history, change technology, change the supporting roles and his own fate, and other methods to damage the Lord God system. He didn't need to fight to the death with the protagonist. But it was undeniable that Duke Sulang's decision helped him save a lot of time, and also helped him avoid a lot of trouble. His mood suddenly happier, Zhou Yunsheng hooked his arms around Du Sulang's neck, kissed his cheeks. "Thank you, dear. You've done me a big favor." Du Sulang stared blankly, then he reacted, grabbing the back of his head and exchanging a deep kiss. Also, he secretly slipped a ring onto his left ring finger. The guests stared slack-jawed. Some even cried out in alarm. The next day, the two business giants' sex scandal spread all over the nation, but the public relations team on both sides didn't come out to quell the news.